Here's the thing about comping your romance novel to Pride and Prejudice or your fantasy novel to Lord of the Rings. You're basically telling an agent that you believe your book is a once in a generation phenomenon. But that's very scary to hear as an agent. It could signal a lot of things. It could mean that this author has delusions of grandeur, that they're going to be difficult to work with, or that they just have an overinflated sense of ego. And because an agent is not just signing a book, but is signing on a client with the idea of working with said client over multiple projects, that's a good way to scare off any potential agent. Now, there are other issues with doing that, so let's go over those. Another problem is you're just talking about really famous books, so it might show that you haven't done any research. And most importantly, even if you have done research, then agent needs proof that you've done research into the current market. And that means 2 to 3 years old from the time that you're querying. Publishing trends change fast, but agents need to pitch your book to editors within a month of signing you. Readers' tastes evolve. What was okay with flowery purple prose in the past is no longer acceptable and results in a lot of did not finish reads on Goodreads and other book review websites. And market conditions shift. So even though a lot of people still love young adult dystopian, the market definitely got oversaturated for a period of time, and agents stopped acquiring it because it was just getting to be too much and editors weren't saying yes anymore. But then there's also tonal shifts, because if you look at paranormal romance in 2010 versus 2025, we have different covers, different tropes. There's a lot more of wide shoes now. Things are definitely sexier regardless of the age category. And comparing your book to Twilight signals to the agent that you're querying that maybe you haven't heard of Scarlett St. Clair or Jennifer L. Armentrout, who, even though she started publishing books many years ago, is still going. Like I said, you want your comps to be from the last 2 to 3 years, but ideally you'll have at least one comp that's actually from the past 6 months to a year old. The sweet spot is 6 months to 2 years old. 3 years is pushing it, and you want them to have performed well, but aren't massive bestsellers or New York Times list toppers, and you want them to share similarities with your book. So genre, tone, and or themes if possible. And if it's a debut novel and you're querying a debut novel, that's even better. It's okay if the book has won some awards, especially a Goodreads Choice Award, because that shows that readers are interested in this type of book. But you don't want something that broke the internet. Now, if you find a comp that is so perfect to your book that it's almost a one-on-one comparison, you can mention it even if it's older, but you need to make sure that you have other titles on your comp list that justify that being there and having broken that rule. There's a classic formula of X meets Y in marketing, and while some people don't like it, it is very effective. And I'm going to show you why. But first, let's go over a bad example. Gone Girl meets Pride and Prejudice. I have no idea what you're trying to say there. The books are completely different. They're in different genres, they're different tones. Even though Pride and Prejudice was not written as a historical novel, it is in a different time than Gone Girl is. And you have so many meanings and associations of each book, but none of them are easily tied together with the other in this X meets Y. So you're just confusing the agent or editor who's reading this, and rather than puzzling out what you mean, they're just going to throw your query in the trash. On the other hand, if you say Bridget Jones meets The Devil Wears Prada, you have a much better chance of grabbing attention because the genre is clear, the setting is clear, the comparisons and how they link together is clear, and it's simple but effective. What if we said The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo meets Daisy Jones and the Six? This is celebrity secrets in the music industry. It's tone heavy, but it still gives a good picture of the book's vibes. And if we tweak this, we could actually get pretty close to a pitch for Thanks for Watching by Kate Kavanaugh, which is a psychological thriller about social media influencers. Now, in those examples, I was using famous titles, but that's just to get the point across of how you can use them. You should not be using famous books in your X meets Y. You can also be more specific for an agent or editor when doing this type of comp list comparison phrasing. If you say perfect for fans of author and author, that gives a better idea of the vibes and the type of career that maybe you're hoping to create with this first book. If you say, my book combines the specific element of title A with the specific element of title B, then that's also incredibly useful. Another phrase you could use is readers who love book A will devour my book in the genre you picked because of special element that your book has. Remember, the less time that your end audience of an agent or editor is confused, the less chance they have of saying no because they couldn't figure out what you were trying to say. You want to get them to an instant yes. If you lay it out for them from the start, you improve your chances. Now, where can you find good comps? If you shop online for books or you go to Goodreads or any other book reviewing websites, there are normally sections of a book page that are customers also bought or readers also enjoyed. You can also go to library websites. You can look up a book on social media and see what is then suggested to you. If you pay for Publishers Marketplace, you can see a lot of books in a certain genre. And if you subscribe to book newsletters or blogs, you'll also see a bunch of books in any given genre. They tend to make lists, and those can be very helpful. So what do? You go to those resources, you find books that remind you of yours in one way or another, and then you check the publication dates. This is so important. I've kept saying it throughout this video, and I will continue to say it because it really, really is important. Then you're going to use our comp title tracker template to write down the title, author, publication date, and why it's similar to your book. Then for reference, you're going to write down how well did it do? Was it a debut? Was it midlist? Was it a bestseller? Was it a debut and a bestseller? Again, remember, you don't want a ton of bestsellers on your list, but one in there isn't a make or break situation. And then you might want to say where you found the information just so that you can go back and check in the future. Remember, agents want comps to prove that you understand the market, you're realistic, you can position your book well, and you follow industry norms. I've put together some examples based on Inimitable books titles. I also used an Agatha Christie classic because we are providing a special twist on it. We're not saying that the book is exactly the same. We are saying, hey, we're reinventing it. Before our next lesson, I want you to fill in your comp title tracker with 5 to 10 potential comp titles. You should read the first chapter of your top 3 choices to make sure that they still are a good fit. And if they're not, then go through the rest of your 10 choices, read the first chapters, and re-rank them. Then narrow down to your top 2 to 3 solid comps after having done that, and make sure they follow the 2 to 3 year rule. And then practice your X meets Y formula with the comps remaining on your list. Don't stress if this takes time. Good comps are worth the research, and it is a skill that you can get better at over time. In our next lesson, we're going to be talking about how to build your ideal reader avatar, because knowing exactly who will love your book will make it so much easier to pitch your book. Remember, you're building a solid foundation. You have your genre, you are getting your comps, and then we're going to keep going.